Alright guys, I thought I'd do a video today a little bit more on the politics side, simply just to sort of clarify where I think things are. Um, it's just my understanding of what I'm seeing. So it's quite straightforward, but it's also a bit of food for thought, because a lot of time we get wound up and annoyed on stuff that has very little value to us, in the sense of we can't do much about it and we get annoyed about it, frustrated about it. But I also believe, fingers crossed, that history is always dictated. If things go one way, they go the other. The sad thing is, normally to an extreme. But what we're seeing right now, I think the woke culture, for example, is under attack. I mean, woke's just nonsense anyway. I say it as it is. It is just nonsense. It's people that are over entitled, over privileged, playing victim. Why? Because they're saying they're the victim, and anytime you try to go against that, you're a racist, you're this, you're that, you're the problem. Not the fact that somebody's telling you to call them a they, there, or a penguin or whatever, which would, in normal times in history, would be called a mental health disorder. That's the reality of it. The thing is, because things take time to go through courts and the legalities behind this, their constant whining has gained more momentum, because it's a bit like the Me Too movement. They group together to create a noise and target people. So you and me have things like a job, you and me are busy doing normal stuff. These people fixate on it. It's a bit like when you look at the Palestinian stuff. Not being funny, I'm British. Palestine's nothing to do with me. The Israeli conflict, nothing to do with me. And you may go, oh well, historically the West did it. I'm not interested. Really not interested. It's before I was born. It's a bit like talking about the Falklands Islands, but it used to be Argentina a long, long time ago. It's still British. It was taken and it's still controlled. Same as the stuff in museums, the conquests of war, where bits of Greece and whatever were dragged back to London and shoved in the museum. It's conquest of war. End of. It was a time in history. You can gripe about it all you want, but unless you're going to pay for them, can't have them. The reason I'm quite blunt and straight on this stuff is because we're constantly getting blamed for things that have nothing to do with us. Let's face it, historically, we weren't there. They want to blame us for things that went on in history, but they also miss what their descendants, or whatever they want to call them there, because sometimes it's not even their descendants, they think they're related to something. They're what they were up to. I mean, you look at the New Zealand. New Zealand protecting the natives that weren't originally there. Those people there, they basically ate the natives, because when they arrived, they were cannibals. Oh, you can't say things like that. Well, they did it. So the point being is, the key to this is you can never argue with an idiot, because if you do, who's the bigger idiot? What you got to do is let this ripple out of time. It will eventually go one way or the other. I can't remember the name of the movie. There was a movie with Sylvester Stallone in it, where he had to be unfrozen in time because the world had become so sterile that everything was a problem and you could be arrested for almost anything, and this is like a utopia. The thing with this is like one person's utopia is another person's nightmare. That is the reality. I like the Philippines in the sense of it's out of control a lot of the time. You can get shot along the street. I can ride my motorbike without my helmet and just wear flip-flops and stuff. Completely illegal. But I don't need to worry about CCTV cameras picking me up, because they're not there. When you go out, I'm on about in the boondocks, when you go out in the middle of nowhere. But in the UK, you got neighbours that are worse than the Stasi, that will report you to the police for everything. You know, whether you're part on the yellow lines or anything, it's very, I don't know, it's like milk monitor and whole monitor type stuff. Horrible little people with nothing better to do. Rather than seeing the bigger picture is, like most of the time, I let people live and let live. I mean, opposite where I live in Spain, the kids hang out down in the, there's a like it's a basement area because they put this substructure in, but they haven't actually built the building because to do with plan permission. I'm actually going to try and buy this bit of land. But the kids, you know, like teenagers, go and hang out down there. No issue with kids hanging out, you know, as long as they're being sensible. I mean, yeah, you're going to go, well, kids aren't normally sensible. Yeah, well, they've set fire to it twice. At that point, I draw the line. But the point is, the police deal with them. Been out twice on it. I've had the fire brigade twice. They're not really damaging anything because it's solid concrete anyway. But the fact is, it's getting to that point where they're at risk of hurting themselves. At which point we draw a line and say, look, can't be trusted to just hang out down there. That's fine. But it shows I'm a lot more flexible than a lot of other people out there. You know, because other people say, well, that's private property, blah, blah, blah. It's like a bunker, you know. You know, I used to hang around when I was a kid on the military ranges. You know, I used to go and look for shells and things like that. Didn't do me harm. It wasn't tank day or whatever. You looked for the flags going up to say it's a live firing event. But the point being is, I used to hang out myself. I used to do stuff like that. And that's one of the things I will say. A lot of us do recognise we were young at some point in our lives. There was too much of reporting each other. I think social media's made it worse because everyone reports each other on Facebook. Did you see Maureen down at number 24? You know, there's all these little clusters of groups for areas and stuff where they're reporting each other. As long as people aren't doing any harm and damage to the area, my view is it's none of my business. But now we're going on to immigration. Why is mass immigration happening? I mean, my personal view is, listening to some of the rhetoric from some of the leftists out there, it's not that they want equality. That's delusional. They do not want that. You know, it's a bit like the people that want windmills and solar farms. They don't want them next to where they live. They just want them in the country, just, you know, with the undesirables. We don't want it where we are. So mass immigration is about equality, a globalization equality. And the way I see it is the fact that you've got it going on in the US with New York, etc., people just flooding over the borders, NGOs actually encouraging it now, even giving roadmaps how to get up through the borders, etc. Across Europe, flooding in. UK's in the right state, then obviously there's the protests and stuff going on Ireland. It's not by accident, it's a globalisation thing. It can't be a local thing. And people going, well, it's the EU. No, this is global. New York is not in the EU. This is a bigger tier on this. Now, it's not conspiracy theories when you can see all the evidence everywhere. You have to start assuming either they're all going to the same universities and college and coming with the same output through lecturers, which may seem a little bit far-fetched, but if you look at the automotive industry and the relationships with Birmingham University and the amount of car design stuff that goes on there, you could see why you end up with a lot of things that look the same, because if everyone studies the same and everything goes back to mathematics, eventually you will end up through aerodynamics and everything else coming back to the same conclusions. But the mass migration thing is about a false equality. It's about saying we're giving these people equality, and as you see, nobody wants them. You know, people say they want them, but like I said, it's a bit like the wind turbine. Yeah, I'd love to have wind turbines if you go that way at least 20 miles. These people don't want them as neighbours, these people don't want them around them. But what you've got is, I look at it from more of a political stance. If you flood an environment with people, they will start trickling through the rest of the system. So the joke in all this is when they say these people are engineers, they're doctors, they're surgeons, and all teachers and all this crap, when we know the majority are not. I mean, we're importing a lot of very unskilled people. I mean, if you watch Lotus Eaters, there's a guy cooking a dead cat. What else did they have on there? Guy having they're using the parks as toilets, etc., etc. Do these sound like people that come from a civilized background? Now, I don't care, they ain't got money. You know, the thing you can't sort of remove is their ability to actually function as a human being. These people are coming from backwards locations, you know, in the sense of they haven't evolved through time, you know. And I've seen it, you know, when I go right out into the boondocks in some places, the place is still about 100 years behind everybody else. It functions, it's okay in the village. The whole thing about sanitation and explaining how people use the toilet all over the villages, etc., and all over the fields and everything, how that causes disease, is something that NGOs get involved in. And then they start putting out toilets in, and then the same locals, even with an outdoor toilet's been paid for and constructed by others, use it to store things like goats and stuff in it. We're importing that mentality. And you can go, oh, you can re-educate, How long does it take? Because you're in their home countries. How long has all this charity work been going on? It's not weeks, it's not months, it's not years, it's decades. Because you have embedded with it culture and the acceptance of what that culture means. So having a dump on your neighbour's lawn may be acceptable in some cultures because they all do it. So when they come to, say, London and go to the park and do it, what's wrong with it? It's normal. That re-education is not a 5-minute thing. And if that's something that's very visual, what else is going on in their heads? That's the reality. I mean, I know it's a bit far out, but I think Papua New Guinea, just as an example, still have people hunting each other in villages. Is that normal? Shall we start importing people from Papua New Guinea? The reality is we're importing deprivation and decimation of our own culture and beliefs and understandings of even human nature. Because our expectations is that we're in environments that should be safe. We're in environments that we consider the people around us, and then we import people that couldn't give a toss. Is it going to change? No. Yeah, unless you get that full pendulum swing, at which point it can go some very bad ways. You know, you could go shoving them all on planes and throwing them out and throwing them back to wherever they've come from, or you could go to civil war and many other things. But then we get into the politics of it, because why would you import all these people? Well, two people I will just bring up for London. Who votes for Sadiq Khan and who votes for Diane Abbott? That's it. Because when you look at their intelligence levels and everything else, they're not aligned with the masses. They're not aligned with sometimes common sense. There is even websites where people will actually say, vote for your local whatever, because that's how the politics are set up at the moment. This is how they're looking to take power. it's not a case of this is a small thing. This is a targeted approach on society. Now, from a common sense viewpoint, because a lot of this is not common sense viewpoint, I could understand it from a economist perspective. If you import a lot of people that are used to be treated like crap or will do anything for virtually nothing, your local population eventually start coming down. Why? Because these guys will do it cheaper. They won't do it better, they'll do it cheaper. And then when they start leaking into the other jobs and whatever, they start to overthrow the governments, etc. You know, they start moving into more and more control. I don't think the UK or many of the nations are a melting point as a nation, but I would say at a local level, in the sense of communities and specific communities with large predominant populations, I think those places are lost. I think if we actually monitor the corruption and everything else, then you'll see a lot of that has been imported. I think you'll find that you'll struggle to change the majorities in there, because it's there's a line in what's the movie? It's Braveheart. The king's talking about the first wedding night of a married Scot, that the Lord gets to basically have the bride for the marital night, and his response to it: we will breed them out. If you can't beat them, basically breed them out. I don't think that's far from where we are. I think that's where we're attempted. I don't think it's going to benefit. I don't think it will get there. I think war's more likely than anything else. But it's interesting when you look at it that they assume everyone's just going to just keep shutting up, and the actual opposite's happening. People are starting to get more and more annoyed. Ireland is a good example, because Ireland, for me, because I'm Scottish-Irish, I'm not English, I'm Scottish-Irish, with a hint of Denmark. I'm about 2% Denmark. But the Irish, the same as the Scots, have been oppressed for a long time. You know, you had the land clearances, you had the fact that Irish were cheaper than slaves. You had the fact that they've been used and abused for a long time. But isn't it weird how they're not playing the victim card? They get on with it until people start flooding their country with people they don't want there, because they have a sense of identity. Gaelic, Celts, there is a sense of identity, and it will boil over, and this is why you're starting to see protests in Ireland. I'm expecting to, well, funny enough, I was saying to my wife, I'm surprised they ain't burning places out, and then you find out they're actually burning down places that are getting earmarked for asylum centres, etc. They're starting to burn buildings down. I was on the terms of people being in them, but they're actually targeting the empty properties. Well, that's just wrong. You know, I'll get people go, oh, that's just wrong. Not when you've got a government that doesn't listen to you. Not that we've got governments all over the planet now ignoring us, as if we're this, like South Africa, riddled with corruption and everything else. Just shut up, put up, and that's the end of it. But when you do that, that's the end of civilization. That's the end of this era until it goes through a complete transition again, because you become a dictatorship, and in a dictatorship, it never ends well. So with Ireland, they're burning out the empty houses. They've had a few political changes, because the government seems very leftist, but they don't seem to understand the dynamics. I mean, you look at Scotland and Ireland. the Catholics, Protestants, there is divides that are still strong there, just on religion, and you're throwing in problems that aren't theirs. My view on this is it will continue to spill over. In Scotland, you had the Scottish Prime Minister, First Minister, who I've got, what's his name, Yusuf or whatever. I just thought the guy's an idiot. He just seemed like if you're a teacher and he's the kid at the back with his hand up, you just go, oh, I don't want to hear it. He's going to say something stupid. Like, oh, what's the capital or whatever. Oh, he just seemed as thick as they come. But when I listened to him in the Parliament, because funny enough, I do actually sort of spend a little bit of time listening to understand it, because you've got to take a broader view on things. You can't assume just because you see clips of things that that's in context. You've got to absorb a bit more of the person to see if he really is this stupid and whatever, in my personal opinion. So listening to him, he got a bashing from the Conservatives about the fact that, about his grovelling letter asking him to try and retain his position, because he was stupid enough to assume he was going to keep it, because this is the point. These people are so arrogant, they assume everyone's got their viewpoint. If they haven't, well, that's your problem. Well, have you arrested for racial hate or something, because they will get rid of you. Sounds very similar to fascism. But the point being, I was listening to him, and he had a jab at he got a jab from the Conservatives. Then he goes, oh, I was proud to be, I'm not going to do my Scottish accent, my wife said she hates it. I was proud to be the first Asian Muslim First Minister for Scotland. I was proud to be one of the youngest, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I got a gold star for attending today. There was no substance to it, right? I'm not being funny. In my realms, I don't go and proud of reading spreadsheets every day, and it's dull and boring, but I'm proud of what I achieved. I'm proud of the fact that the buildings are functioning and everything's working fine. But I'm not to the point I'm going to go and say it to everybody, because I just see that as my job. It's not exciting. So somebody go and give me a gold star because I turned up and, I didn't really do my job, that's why I'm being thrown out. It's not really impressive to me. But then it was followed up by another jab from the Conservatives, and he went on about being proud to be in the Scotland's party, which I just thought, scroungers. That was all I could think, scroungers. Free university places, free bus passes for, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Free. Scroungers. Absolute scroungers. The party of scroungers. I'm Scottish, but these people offend me. Not because I'm all sensitive. They just make me annoyed because they think scrounging is a good thing. My viewpoint is, did you grow the economy? No. Have you reduced the cost of living? No. Have you dealt with the massive drug problem in Scotland? No. Gang violence? No. Poverty? No. So what are you proud of? University places, you made them free. So I assume we're getting a lot of high quality, well-skilled, global opportunists. No. So I can't understand why anybody would vote for those people, beyond having a chip on the shoulder about the English. The SNP are just a joke to me. They're embarrassing. I mean, the whole thing with Salmon, the whole thing with Jimmy Cranky, I forget her name now. They just whinge. They don't produce anything. They have not made Scotland great or anything else. They produce nothing. They've just cost a lot of money. And I've got relatives in Scotland, and they're robbed blind because they have a job. They're paying their way of these scroungers. So yeah, and that's my perspective, and that's me complaining about people from my home country. Ireland is getting double smashed because it's still got the problems from the EU costs, because obviously it's had its economy problems, and then it's had this massive influx that it can't support. Shall we go on to England and Wales? Well, Wales I'll just leave to the side because Wales does its own thing. It's always had problems anyway. It's not really. I've never seen Wales as really functioning correctly because they have a chip on their shoulder. The whole NHS thing, we're going to England because the NHS in Wales wasn't working, just a prime example. But one of the things I will say about going into London a lot lately, it's not nice. Now, don't get me wrong, London City, because there's two parts of London, like let's just call it central London, where you've got all your House of Parliament and your Tower Bridge and all the tourist places. It's okay. It's starting to look a bit grim, but it's okay. I spend a lot of time on the bigger London, the greater London, shall we call it. It is grim. It's slum. It's horrible. You know, funny enough, we have because I work with a lot of surveyors. You know, not directly because we've all worked together for years, but we communicate with each other a lot. And you look at the graffiti, the rubbish, the demographic change. It's all on a downward spiral. I mean, then you get into the crime stuff that goes on. I'm not going to mention the K word, but in case this affects my issue on there. Not that this is going to be YouTube friendly anyway. But the point being is, we're ignoring the problems. These are imported problems. These are cultural issues. These are things where people will not talk about the truth. The truth is gangs, tribal attitudes, the willingness to hurt, kill or maim somebody. A lot of these are imported. Because I find most people in the UK lack any teeth. I mean, it's the saying, was a nation, you know, why I remember, was it Peter was on about it, he was on about Scottish soldiers, no, he was on about the army. I think his version of it was, it's a nation of lions led by sheep. You know, he's on about the bad leadership in the country, in that soldiers rely on themselves, which is actually true. They expect incompetence. They always have done, as far as I remember. You've never expected officers to be of any value or talent. And that, you know, my dad did 22 years as well, and he had no respect for them because they didn't earn it. They were often just clowns. They had high levels of incompetence just on basic stuff. But I think the UK lost its teeth, and this is why this gets onto the important bit, and I know it's at 30 minutes, but my view is we need to reinstate our own passions, our own history, our own identities, our own history, our own personalities, our own truths. Because ours is truths. It's not a left agenda with a fluffy bunny. Don't say that, because then that affects what we're actually saying. So let's not whitewash it, because we want rid of the whites. Let's just do something else. We need to start reinforcing the fact is, no, we will have our flags up. We will have our holidays. We will start bringing back historical things that were sort of pushed out. You know, like, here's a big one. This thing called Christmas. You know, the big push on it. Isn't that weird, right? Let's just take this from a perspective of just my thoughts, right? We're getting people promote Ramadan and Eid in London, just a big thing. We get Christmas is pushed as a winter festival and all the negative stuff, and it's been commercialised, so we shouldn't really support that. But Ramadan and Eid, oh, fantastic, really great, really great. Christmas, poo that. So we're going to have a religion that's nothing to do with us, not part of our culture, not part of our history, but let's crap on something that has a strong relationship to the identity of Western civilization. Because you can take it to the Crusades. Where did that come from? Well, there's a big cross. What's the cross for? Oh, that's part of our history because it's all linked together. Oh, yeah, but we're not allowed Christmas. Why? It offends these people that want us to celebrate their holidays. I'll tell you what I say. Not interested. And I'm getting it on a regular basis because I'm doing a master's degree at the moment. You will not believe how bad it is in the way they're trying to push agendas in here. The actual course itself is very, very basic. I'm finding it to the point that I could probably finish in a month if I could just get a month to just do it. But where it's odd is we get these like must reads, and then we can book 90 minutes to it, whatever, to prove that we've read it. We've had LGBTQ, we've had Black History Month, we've had Ramadan and Eid. Britishness is the new one. British values? British values this week, actually. Yeah. So British values week. I actually showed my wife this because I'm saying it's not me, is it? You know, because this is the point. They start making out. It's obviously you. So British values is about inclusiveness. It's about basically everything that would be in a diversity and equality policy. And the college is sort of going, well, we support this. Your government, this is what the government say it is. And I went, okay, I accept that is your viewpoint. End of, because this is a dictatorship educational environment. They don't want to be questioned. They don't want to be challenged. I'm not studying physics. I'm not studying string theory or something else. This is a business management leadership course. So you just follow what we send you. So the point is, my protest on it is, I see that as your viewpoint. End of. I can't sort of emphasise the fact that that's not British values at all. It's what you're dictating British values is with the current government and the current inabilities of the government to actually decide what it is. Because it's trying to please everybody, as such it pleases nobody. Because what happens is you've got stronger agendas coming from certain parties. They support it, then the media pushes against it, so then they water it down, and it goes backwards and forwards, and nothing ever gets achieved. Not supporting any direct political action. So the point being is, no, equality and diversity is not the nothing for me to do with being British values. One of the key ones I would have said, which is the basic one just historically, is keeping a stiff upper lip. I'd say that's one of British values, is the ability to just plod on. It's not in there. So, yeah. You know, when people say that they're attacking the education establishment, they're not joking. It's a joke in the sense of, doesn't make me a better leader, doesn't make me a better manager, doesn't make me a better person. In fact, it makes me guarded because I'm seeing that my kids will be going through the same trash at a different level. I've got to admit, Spain's not as bad as the UK. They are a bit more passionate here. Hence we have the issues with the Basque separatists, Catalonia. We have a lot of protests, a lot of rioting, a lot of political stuff going on, where the UK is just suppressed. Continuously suppressed and oppressed. And then we sit there and go, oh, we're an open culture here, we're an open farm, we've got freedom of speech. No, we haven't. This is about as free as it gets, and I've got to take the advertising off it. And then, like, you get your Me Too's and whatever, they cluster together to try and destroy everything, because everyone else is like just trying to do their bit in life. They're not trying to dismantle other people's lives or create a problem. They're actually just trying to get through lives. So talk about the cost of living crisis. Cost of living crisis, this is a bit of the last topic on this because we're already over 35 minutes. I believe it's man-made in the sense of I don't believe it's actually correct. I think we've created inflation because inflation devalues government debt. Inflation also means that the money in your wallet goes less. So when people talk about Davos and you will owe nothing, there is sometimes an assumption this would never happen. But look at how much money is stacked up in property, and it doesn't need to be. Your biggest cost of living is living, your property. So that's gone up. It may have gone up in value, but it then means people come into the market paying more, which means their debts are going to go on for longer and longer with the mortgages, which means they're constantly stuck in the hamster wheel, they're submissive, they're controlled, everything's locked you into a house. Then food prices have gone up, about 30%. So the squeeze is further up there. Then they start bringing all this ULEZ legislation in, and so, get rid of diesel cars, all got to go electric, blah, 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 blah. And all that is doing is squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. It's control. But the problem you've got is once you've got too much control, the locals start to become restless because there is no value in working anymore. There is no, there's no desire to do anything. This is why you start to see sort of a focus on be a better person. You're not working hard enough. You're not doing enough. Reality is, you guys probably are, unless you're sitting unemployed and doing nothing and decided that, pity me, the world owes me everything. If you're actually getting out of bed and working, my view is if you're doing an 8-hour day, don't matter what it is, you should be able to put a roof over your table, roof over your head and food on your table. End of. Basics. Because you can't do the basics at the lower tier. Let's just go lower tier, somebody that's on minimum wage or whatever, then the system isn't working. The whole progressive piece on working harder, getting better educated, etc., locks people in that are smarter. It's your higher, your better trained people in society. And I say better trained because a lot of it is to do with subservient control. I mean, the education system is swayed that way. It's do what I say, don't do as I do. I mean, it's often that way. But the point being is that control. If you keep people occupied that have money, at the same time, filtering it all out, because I've got to admit, I earn over 80,000 a year. And I'd say my standard of living, in my opinion, is about average. But then I realise many of my friends are earning in the 20s. But I'm perplexed on how some people even survive on it, because my expenses are quite high. I pay a lot of tax, for example. But I look at the bigger picture here is people are, the UK economy, very few people work for the amount of people that are living off the backs of them. The whole system is completely screwed. But the people that are working and keeping occupied and whatever are probably going to be the ones most likely to have an uprising if they got to a point of tinderbox. The ones at the bottom that collect benefits and are just going through the motions of life, and they don't protest unless it's costing them money. Hence, the poll tax riots occurred when they tried to go down that route. We haven't reached a point where that tinderbox event has happened, because as long as people get fed at the bottom and roof over their heads, it will not trickle through to the rest of the economy. You'll find people that are doctors and people at my wage bracket and above are getting hammered. But at the same time, it's like, re-educate, get another course under your belt, work harder. Nobody says work smarter. So for me, this is why I'm spending a lot of time working smarter, because I need to diversify out of this, and I need to go back to consulting and controlling all my income. Because if I take a minimum salary and work the system, I should be able to work for less and earn more, bizarrely. We're in a strange world, and it is all about control. It's all about control. It's not about you and, you can have your local elections, you can have your vote for... Sorry, I didn't vote for that First Minister of Scotland. I didn't vote for Richie Sunak. I didn't vote for Boris. Was Theresa May? No, I didn't vote for any of these people. We're in a very strange environment, and the problem is, like I said, people are too busy working, too busy, and these guys are just sitting there. People go, these people are out of touch with reality. They're in touch with it. They don't have to. Their reality is this. I don't care what you think. I'm still going to get voted in. Why? Because there's no alternatives. We give you democracy. It's Labour or Conservative. Anything else, the vote doesn't mean anything, because we control the majority of seats. Go independent. Yay, you got an independent. Get that independent and try and push something through Parliament. Won't be able to do a thing, because the power of the vote is in the parties that control the most votes. This is why it does that. It goes yin yang up the middle, and nobody likes the bit in the middle because it's crap. Going more socialist, not beneficial, so it goes socialist one way, or they've spent all the money, swing back to the Conservatives, they spent it all on PPE. We're in such a state, it's just not funny, and I do blame Tony Blair, because he set that trend. The yin and yang piece used to keep the economy sort of in check, doesn't anymore. And I know it sounds quite a negative video, this one, but it was just to sort of air it from my perspective, because now I can move on and focus on the realities that get the mortgage paid on the house. That's the key to this for me. I'm out of the game at that point. When people say, you got to work for your pension. Because the next thing is there'll be means-tested pensions, and if I'm still working and whatever, guess what? You've got far too much money for that. All that money you paid into the system. Big F you, you're not getting paid a penny. But why rely on the state for anything, except to fleece you for every opportunity it has? Anyway, negative video, over and done with. Lots of rants, lots of food for thought. Please leave comments if you want to discuss it. Thanks for watching.